I just, it was appalling to see something like that. I'd never encountered anything like that at home, even though we lived around, you know, totally white folks, tight white people. They didn't treat us like that. Well, they invited us into their home. They come to our house, you know, especially my mother, whenever she would bake bread, the whole community could smell it, you know, and you would see people coming over the fences. Like we had a neighbor, the Conleys, they could smell the bread baking, and they knew that my mother was baking bread, so they would come. They just loved her bread, the same as, you know, like we did. And she was a marvelous bread maker. And anyway, I did not, I felt so uncomfortable after that, you know. Whenever I'd go someplace in the South, I would make sure that I went to a totally black neighborhood or a totally black place of entertainment or wherever I was going. So I was very careful, and while I was in the South, especially when I was going to school down there in helicopter maintenance, an incident happened down there where one of my brothers was hung in a tree close to the highway just because he had a Cadillac, a white Cadillac. And then I didn't see this, but this is what was told to me, and this is what was in the newspaper. And some of the friends of mine showed me this in a black newspaper in Dothan, Alabama.
What year was this?
This was 1962.
And he was a man you knew that got
No, I didn't know him, and they stated that was the reason he was hung, because he had a white Cadillac. And I said, oh my goodness. I had a friend named Smitty up in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I had a white Cadillac convertible, and I never thought anything about that until I heard this, you know. I said, my goodness. It puzzles you sometimes, you know. Now, I was a young man, my early 20s, and I didn't know what to make of this type of thing that was happening to me, you know, because I was becoming very aware of my color. Some of the incidents that happened was my own doing, but I don't think I'll talk about those. But anyway, there were some unfair treatment that I feel, you know, as I look back on my life, you know, trek through the military life and up until now. I just think that I have my heroes. I really do. And my number one on the list is Martin Luther King. I think a lot about, forgive me for not remembering so well, the lady that Rosa Parks, the lady that she's a poet. I just love her. Maya Angelou. Mm-hmm. A lot of the, you know, the people of color that have come, that have risked everything, you know, for me. It's almost like a godsend, a Christ. I was just reading today, you know, in the Bible it said, you know, if a person lays down his life for his brother, the Lord, God is in him. If he won't, then he's not. But I was just reading that scripture today, because Jesus Christ laid his life down for us all. That's what I believe. So today, the way I feel about, you know, the things that have happened to me, it was just something that I went through, that the Lord brought me through for a greater blessing today.
I'm just going to ask you a few more questions. If you could just tell us, how did you learn about slavery, and are there stories in your family that you know where people were enslaved and their masters' names and those kind of things? And you talked a little bit about your Native and American and white heritage. Do you know how that entered in to the family?
Really, I don't have any real history, written or otherwise, or you know, just per mouth, hand me down, except I was shown a picture of my great-grandmother, and my mother told me, so that's your great-grandmother, and she was white, and I haven't seen any pictures of my Indian heritage, so to speak, except for my mother. Now, she was part Indian, part white, part black, a mixture of heritage. On my father's side, I don't know of any, except for my cousin Joe Smith. Now, this is ironic. I went to his house one time. I used to go over and see him, and he'd tell me stories about, you know, about the Indian people that would come across, you know, that lived on Buck Ridge. They dwelled there, and they'd come. They would come to his house sometimes, you know, and he was when he was a young boy, and he said he remembered that. He was talking to me one time, and he said, I kept looking at this picture he had over on the mantle, you know, and I said, that looks like a Civil War soldier. He said, yeah, that's my grandpa. And he was German. And I said, my goodness, Joe, how does he, you know, entwine into your family? He said, well, he married my grandmother, and he served in the Union Army. And there's something else I'd like to show you. And he says, see this belt buckle? This is what he wore. And Joe was wearing that. And he said, I want to take you upstairs and show you something. He showed me a full uniform of his grandfather, and his boots, his gun, and his sword. And you know, I said, Joe, you have something here that should be in a museum. and I said, isn't this great? And you know, it wasn't very long after that. See, I didn't go back to see him for a little while, and he died trying to start a fire. He got burned, and I think he had a heart attack, and he died. And I do not know to this day what happened to that uniform, that belt buckle, or his gun. I don't know.
So his grandfather was German and
Yes.
married a person of color?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was, do you know the name of the grandfather?
No, I don't.
And how is Joe related to you?
Um, his mother was my grandmother's sister. Yeah, her name was Rose. Rose Smith.
Are there any stories about slavery in your family that you can recall?
No. The only stories that I hear about slavery, actually, and it's not personal. It isn't personally connected to my family. Is what I see on TV, what I read about, and what Miss Scott tells me. Barbara is a history book in herself, within herself. So she would know a great deal more about my family than I know about them because she's a historian. Pardon?
Is Barbara related to you?
Somewhat, I think. I really don't know where the connection is, but I think her her father was. I think this is by marriage. Her father is Uncle Charlie Smith, that was married to my Aunt Rose, which is my grandfather's sister. I think they're brothers.
What do you know about the Underground Railroad in this area?
Very little. I saw on television about this family coming out of the South into freedom and crossing at Point Pleasant. And I thought, my goodness, isn't that ironic? It's right next door. And so I thought, I said, that could have been some of my family that crossed there, you know. And this is kind of funny, but I was looking at them. See, these were characters, you know, that were actors, and I was looking at them. I was trying to see the resemblance, maybe. That's kind of crazy, but I understand that there is some of the Underground Railroad in Grant, Ohio. You know, where people have you know, hid the slaves there. I don't know if I'm right or not, but there is a brick house close to the highway there that they say that has some underground heritage where slaves came to. But I don't know that for a fact.
There's black Evans and a lot of white Evans in this area. Are they related? Do you know? Do you know if the Evanses are related? Probably should ask someone else.
You probably should, but I don't know, except for the slave-master relationship, maybe. But I know Bob Evans, our own Bob Evans. He was a kind person, quite prominent. You know, he died here recently. But I don't know that he was related to any of the black Evanses. I just know the Evanses that, like Mom Evans here and her family.
You mentioned you were in the South a little bit during those times. Did you see the civil rights movement, or how did you view the civil rights movement?
Really, I did not see the civil rights movement at the time. It was back earlier, I think, before it got prominent, and I was really it didn't come to my attention until later on, you know, maybe probably 64. Uh, I think it was after our President Kennedy was killed. I first become aware of the civil rights movement, and I think that was about in '64, and I've been kind of following it ever since.
This is the last question. What were some of the home remedies that people used to treat illnesses when you were growing up?
Oh, I remember my granddaddy. He had an arsenal, but I can remember a few of them. Now, for cough syrup, there was cherry bark, mullein. I got a stalk of mullein out there. He's about dead now, but he showed me what it was, and that's what he mullein, and it's real furry, like, you know. Mullein. He used what do they call these little berries? Pokeberries, and he used that for cough syrup. And I remember that, you know, when I was a little child, because it tastes so good. And I really remember that cherry flavor that was in the cough syrup. I was coughing all the time. And but it didn't do me a whole lot of good. My mom, she saw through that. And so he would make it in little, and boil it and put it in little bottles, you know, so she could use it. And she made sure that we didn't get too much of it. It was for medicine. And I don't know exactly how it worked, but later on, you know, I saw in some of these homocystic, I think they call them, people that use natural herbs, they used some of that mullein. They used, I think, cherry bark. And cherries is really good for you. I understand right now. I understand that cherries are really good for if something ails your stomach. You know, I see that in some of these alternative, you know, literature flyers. Actually, that's about, from my grandfather, what he made for us kids is about all I really know about, you know, some of the home remedies. That's about it.
Well, is there anything that you'd like to add to the interview that I haven't asked you already? Any story you'd like to tell that I haven't touched on that you think is important? Or something about your family's history?
I have I've just been blessed so well. You know, isn't it ironic we were born in the United States of America? This is great. I look at the Iraqi people and Darfur and places like that, you know, where they're having so much problems, you know, people dying. There's no respect for human life. And I said, God, I feel so blessed that I should be doing more to help those people, because I'm free. Even though the things that happened to me, you know, the racial things, you know, I do believe this is the best country, and I hope we keep it that way. I hope we do the things, we go down the right paths so that our country will not go down like some of the rest, you know, as godless. And if we go the way of the other countries, that's what's going to happen. So this country was founded on the principles that are right in the Bible. I'm sure of that because I read it in history. And some of the people that wrote the Constitution they prayed. They prayed first. And I heard a man say one time, he said, well, that's where they made their mistake. They prayed and God made them do it. So I really, other than that, the blessings that I have through life is tremendous. Even, where I live, I'm content, but I'm also content to move on somewhere else. And I love my family, love my children. I love my wife especially. And I love my church. And I love my church family. And I really think that I am one blessed person.
What church do you attend now?
Mount Carmel.
Oh, okay, you do attend.
Yeah.
And just the last question, is there anybody else that we should interview that you know that we haven't interviewed, or somebody in the community that knows a lot about the history area that you can recommend for us to interview?
And I'm sure you interviewed Barbara Scott. So you have the history. That's the only person that I know of, that really has, that's really a real historian that would, can tell you a lot about. She's talked to me on the phone, and told me a little bit about the things that she's encountered. She even told me that she was related to one of the white lawyers in Gallipolis. And
Not Charrington.
I really don't know. You'd have to ask her. But it was really something that he come and told her and said, well, I heard, we are related. He acknowledged that, and I think we have come, a lot of us have come to the point where, race doesn't matter that much to most of us. I hope that's the way it is.
Now, just as an aside, did you ever hear about Eddie Peppers growing up that was sentenced to die in the electric chair?
I heard you talking to Mom here about that, but I don't recall Eddie Peppers, the one, but I do recall the Eddie Peppers, the preacher, and I have really nothing to say about him, because he was a nice person. He really was.
I met his daughter this past week in Peaches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it, unless there's something you'd like to add.
I think that about sums it up, and I wish you well.
Oh, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I just need you both to sign a paper saying I didn't make you interview and that we can use the interview for our project.
This wasn't an interrogation.